Yeah. All right, so today I am going to tell you a fairy tale from Russia. So once upon a time, there was a king and he had 3 sons and he wanted them to get married. So he brought them together and he said, okay, guys, you're going to shoot your bow and arrow, and wherever your arrow lands, that is where your wife is. Yeah. And then, so the first son shot his arrow and it landed in the backyard of the princess, and he was like, yes. And then the second son shot his bow and arrow and it landed in the backyard of a beautiful girl, a merchant's daughter, and he was like, yes. And then the third son came and he shoots his bow and arrow and it lands in a swamp. And he was like, oh, he looks at his dad and he goes, Dad, are you sure? His dad says, yes, I am. So he goes to the swamp, and what does he find in the swamp? He finds a frog. Yeah, he finds a frog. And he is like, okay. So he picks up this frog and he takes it back to his dad. He's like, Dad, are you sure? And his dad's like, I'm pretty sure. And so he marries the frog and he takes it home. And so a little while later, the king gets a little bored. So he says, all right, gathers his sons together and he says, have your wives make me some bread. And I want to see who makes the best bread. And so the youngest son goes home and he goes, I don't know what I'm going to do. He's like, my father wants you to make bread, but you're a frog. Like, how are you going to make bread? And the frog says, don't worry about it, husband. I got this. You go to sleep. We'll talk about it in the morning. And when he goes to sleep, she leans out her window and she says, maids, maids, come to me and bake me bread like we used to do at my father's house. So all the maids come and they spend all night baking bread. And the next day, the king is presented. Oh, you guys, it is golden fluffy on the outside, crispy with like that buttery taste, and the inside so white, so fluffy, so good. She totally wins, hands down, best bread. And so the king goes, that worked pretty good. So he was like, hey, gathers all his sons together. He says, hey, have your wives make me a rug. And he goes home and he's like, wife, what am I going to do? He's like, how are you? You're a frog. How are you going to make a rug? He wants a rug now. What are we going to do? And so she says, I got you. Don't worry about it. Go to sleep. We'll talk about it in the morning. And so when he falls asleep, she leans out the window and she says, maids, maids, come to me. Help me make a rug like we did at my father's house. And they work all night, and in the morning there is a beautiful rug. It is made out of silk. It has these beautiful colors. The pattern is amazing. The king, oh, hands down, this is the best rug. She wins again. And so the king gathers all his sons together, and he says, you know what? Let's have a beauty contest. Everyone bring your wives, and we'll see which one is the most beautiful. The youngest son is just like, why? So he goes home and to his wife, the frog, and he says, we're going to have a beauty contest. He's like, what? He's like, I don't know. He's like, you're a frog. Like, you're a nice frog, but you're still a frog. What are we going to do? And so she says, husband, I got you. Don't worry about it. Go to sleep. We'll figure it out in the morning. So the next day, the son wakes up and he goes to the party by himself. And he's like, I don't know. And his two brothers show up. Of course, they make fun of him. They're like, where's your wife? She in your pocket? Where's your wife? And just at that moment, these 4 beautiful horses come rushing into the courtyard, and they're pulling behind them this carriage that's just gorgeous. It's got these huge golden wheels. And out of it steps the most beautiful princess. Her hair is just shining in the sun. Her dress is like so beautiful and she looks amazing. And the father goes, wow, you did it again. Hands down, she's the winner. And all the other brothers are super jealous. And you have to admit that the youngest prince is extremely happy that the frog turned into a beautiful woman. He's super pumped. So he would really like her to stay as a beautiful woman. He doesn't want her to turn back into a frog. So while they're having a big party and everyone's eating and dancing, he like sneaks back to his rooms, finds her frog skin, and throws it in the fire. And he burns it up, and it's gone. And so all of a sudden, there's a knock at the door, and it's the And she says, what have you done? And he says, well, I wanted you to stay as a beautiful princess. And so I threw your frog skin in the fire so you didn't have to be a frog anymore. She's like, it was a curse, and that's not how it works. And I would have been done the curse soon, but now I have to go back to my father. Goodbye. And she disappears. She goes back and she's gone. And the youngest son is heartbroken. He is really, really sad. So he decides he's going to go look for his wife. So he goes out into the world. He's going to search for his wife, right? And he tells everyone, he's like, you guys, she was a frog. Then she was a beautiful princess. I didn't want her to go back to being a frog, so I burned her frog skin, and now she's gone, and I can't find her. Has anybody seen like a frog princess? Anyone seen a frog princess? And finally he comes across an old man who says, well, that's a pretty sad story. I can see how you screwed up there. So I'll tell you what, I'll give you my magic ball. All you have to do is follow the ball. It'll take you where you need to go. He's like, all right, thank you so much. That's amazing. So he starts following this ball. And it's rolling and rolling. It goes up hills and down hills and across valleys and across rivers. And he's just traveling. And while he's traveling, he sees a bear. And he says, bear hamburgers. Oh, so good. So he pulls out his bow and arrow. He's going to shoot the bear. And the bear goes, whoa, whoa, whoa. Hey, don't shoot me. I'll be your friend. Who knows? Maybe I'll come in handy later. And he goes, okay. So he's traveling along. And all of a sudden he sees a rabbit. And he's like, ooh, rabbit stew. That sounds good. So he pulls out his bow and arrow. And the rabbit says, whoa, 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 don't shoot me. I'll be your friend. Maybe I'll come in handy someday. And the prince goes, okay. So he keeps traveling. And then he sees a duck. A beautiful white duck. And he says, oh, duck pie. I want some of that. So he pulls out his bow and arrow. And he's going to shoot it. And duck says, whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa. Don't shoot me. I'll be your friend. Who knows? Maybe I'll come in handy someday. And the prince goes, okay. So he's traveling and he's following the ball and he's going up and down hills and across mountains and across rivers. And he comes to this little hut, this little tiny hut. And out of the door of the hut comes this little old witch called Baba Yaga. And she comes out and she's like, what do you want? And he's like, well, I got married to a frog. She turned into a beautiful princess. I would much rather her stay as a beautiful princess. So I burned her frog skin. And she's like, let me guess. She was cursed and now she's gone away and you're looking for her. And he says, yeah, that's what I'm doing. And so she says, I know who you're talking about. And I know that her father is guarding her very jealously in his castle. And I know the only way to defeat the father is to get a magic needle. And he says, great, where's the needle? And she says, well, it's inside a duck, inside a hare, inside a tree. And she's like, it's going to be really hard to get. And he says, yeah. And she's like, and you still have to find the tree. And he says, well, thank you for your help. I'm going to go try and do that. So he takes his magic ball. He says, I got to find the tree. And so the ball starts rolling. He follows the ball and it takes him to this really weird, gnarly tree with no leaves on it. And he goes, that looks like a weirdly magic tree. Oh, this is probably it. But he's like, how am I going to get a rabbit and a duck out of there? And along comes the bear. And the bear says, hey, I can help you with that. So the bear goes and with his huge paws, he just crumbles the whole tree into shards. And there's just little splinters, each as big as a matchstick on the ground. And he goes, wow. But before he even has time to appreciate it, a rabbit comes hopping up out of the mess and starts running across the field. And all of a sudden, his rabbit friend comes and jumps on that rabbit that's running away and hugs him really tight. And you know what pops out of that rabbit? A duck. Yeah, that's right, a duck. A duck pops out of that rabbit. The duck starts to fly away, and it's flying away, and all of a sudden his duck friend comes and smashes into that other duck while it's flying, and out of that duck pops an egg, and the egg falls from the sky and lands right in the prince's hand. And the prince crushes the egg, and inside the egg is the needle, the magic needle, that's right. And so he takes the needle, he defeats the father, he gets his princess back, and they live happily ever after. The end.
Nice.